Our guest today is returning to share his updates from the 4 years since our first recording. He is a 38-year-old, originally straight Christian who came out as gay, dated women for a year and thought he wasn't gay anymore, now emerging as a kinky bi man. Here with us today to talk about Pilates, Kundalini, and the awakening of his masculine that led him back to seeing women again, and his explorations of existential kink and finding peace with subconscious shadows of childhood, ultimately discovering harmony with his sexuality at a much deeper level that is now his whole life through Tantra. He is also launching a series of retreats along with private coaching sessions for men who want to embody primal fitness, primal sex, and the fullness of their creative expression. He grew up in Georgia and Montana and is with us today from Boca Raton, Florida. You can hear his first episode, number 122, Enjoying My Gay, from May 2021. Welcome back, Mark Turnipseed.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to be back. I can't believe that it's been 4 years. It feels like it's been like a lifetime of living.
Totally. I totally feel that, and thank goodness that we've evolved and how wonderful to be back. I'm so excited to kind of fill in the gaps. But before we get to your details, let's do a little calibration. If you had to rate yourself today on a sexual shame-o-meter, with 10 being so full of sexual shame and 0 being like, I don't have any right now, where do you fall today?
I fall in a vibration that goes from 10 to 0 in constant flux.
Okay. What does that feel like?
And then, and then I have to settle it out. And then I just hang out below the whole measure
All
and just
right.
let it bounce on my head. And then sometimes it comes into my mind, fucks with me a little bit. And then I realize that shame actually doesn't even exist. It's
Mm.
no different from any other thought that comes into me, like a thought that I want to eat an apple. It's the same thing. Thoughts about who I am. Like I've changed so many times. I can tell at the point of being 38 years old that whatever I think I am right now, I'm not going to be in 5 more minutes. So just let go of whatever it is, you know?
I love that answer and the amount of permission that it gives to be honest with ourselves in a given moment about who and what and how we really feel and are and exist in this moment. So, okay, where do you want to start? Pilates, Kundalini, Tantra? Like, what? Take us through the evolution of the last 4 years, all the lifetimes that you have lived in the last 4 years.
Woo, man. Well, last we talked, I was an LGBTQ advocate and I was living just like this amazing gay life, right? There was like this pent up little boy inside that finally got to come out and play. It felt like Peter Pan or something. I don't know. I was so very excited and everything was bright and just, colorful. And I was riding on some sort of high. And this high, I've recognized now throughout my life, I kind of seek to always have like some sort of stimulatory high, right? And then as we get on, we'll talk about kink and how I can like taper that high so I can stay focused in life, right? But when I came out initially, I was so freaking excited that I just kind of, just exhausted myself, I think. And that's what I do. I kind of go all into something and I jump in a little bit too hard. Now, that concept is actually a great concept because a lot of people never even take the jump, right? And so taking that leap is kind of my strong suit. My strong suit has never been going the distance. And so when we first met, right, I was just studying and learning about not studying, doing triathlon. Triathlon is what pulled me out of addiction, right? And so physically, I was beginning to understand how to go the distance, right? I was beginning to understand that if I take a jump into something, I don't have to go like all the way in. I don't have to go all the way in. There's some sort of middle ground that I can find, right? But of course, when I came out, it's all the way in. And that's why I identified as a gay man right when I came out. And then people would be like, but you were just married to a woman. And I'd be like, so what? I'm a gay man, you know?
Yeah.
And part of me in there started to recognize that, that was a big jump, and that in saying that I'm a gay man, I'm kind of telling all the people that I loved in my past that I was not actually in love with them. And that was kind of burning inside. So there was always that like little bit of, it was like, this is not a truth. It felt like not a truth, me saying that I was gay. So eventually anything that I have inside of my life, I know if it's a lie, it's going to eventually keep me from going the distance.
Mm.
It's going to eventually wear down on my endurance and wear down on my strength. And so as I'm trying to live this way, I start to kind of lose luster or something. And then I start seeking. I started seeking. So I went and did an ayahuasca journey. And this ayahuasca journey was just absolutely profound. Before the journey, I had to like stop having sex, stop looking at porn, stop watching horror movies, like all sorts of things, right? And just kind of completely changed my life. And then the visions that I had throughout it showed me this new person, and I knew that when I got out of that, that all I had to do was like take the next step, whatever the next step was that presented itself, take the next step in my bliss, right? And not reject it. And so that led me into, going into Kundalini and kind of seeking. I just started seeking deeper in my yoga and in the fitness that had helped me kind of start connecting to myself, right? Now, I don't want to continue just like can tell the whole entire story. So stop me.
I mean, I could interrupt you 1,000 times, but also, I wanna say I
That's a good
have
little chunk right there.
it's a great chunk. I first wanna connect by saying I have a song that have started singing to myself this year that literally just goes, "One step at a time, one step at a time," every time I feel myself swizzling out of control, because like you said, taking that next step of bliss and, not rejecting that step and allowing myself to go toward that, with the feeling, and for me, I can be so in my brain, I drop into the feeling. I would love to hear you expand for those of us who maybe grew up very concretely on a farm, and I've done yoga classes and I'm a little bit familiar with Tantra and Kundalini, but I haven't studied other than like reading books. Tell us a little bit about what your yoga practice has been and what you mean when you say going deeper into your practice.
And I can only tell about my experience,
Yeah.
right? And yoga became something deeply, deeply, deeply personal to me very early on in my experience. And so when COVID hit, honestly, I just started to have real, real deep connections with myself, with my breath, with mindfulness, with meditation. I would bring myself to these kind of epiphanies or these visions. And the next day I would feel released from certain traumas or past or different relationships resolved. And the one that I was most excited about, honestly, because I had come out of the closet and it was getting kind of exhausting. I wasn't respecting my endurance principle, right? And I was getting kind of exhausted, and I was doing this like I was seeking Kundalini, right? I was seeking this energy that people would talk about, right? And so here I am doing my meditations, and it happened. I think I started to become open to it way before that because I started loosening my hips. I had this goal of like loosening my hips a lot. And so I got these hip hooks that I would put inside my hip and just ram them. And I was
That can
doing
be a
that because
lot of feeling, right? Like, sorry to
tons of
interrupt,
feeling like
but like, that's an intense thing to do.
madness, madness. Yeah. I was starting to, I don't know, just release a lot of stuff that ultimately, as my hips started to release, I remember feeling this presence of, and then like with the mix of like the Kundalini, this feminine aspect that was like
Mm.
receptive inside of me to this like the spirit realm. I don't know how else to describe it, but I do know that in the experience, what happened was I stood up and then I was like raging hard and I was like just craving to be inside of a woman. And I can't
Mhm.
describe it any other way, but I was craving that. And it was like this big pent up, like built up pressure within. And I'm starting to realize that, I mean, maybe any sort of label that I put on myself is actually some sort of trauma, some sort of protective lens that I can then view myself in to
Mm.
protect me from trauma. And I might as
Mm.
well just get rid of all of them
Yeah.
because then I can be free of my trauma because it's the label that kind of reminds me of it in essence. Why don't I just show up like who I am when I am? I don't know who I will be tomorrow. I mean, I know who I was back then, but I will be whoever I will be. And that's who we all are, you
Yeah.
know? So it's so difficult to define like as I started to go through this process, I was like, okay, well, I think that I'm straight, but I really have no idea what to be saying right now. So, man, I got so confused.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pause there for a second because what you said really resonates with me and so many of the people that I speak to in many different contexts, right? Like, I personally don't want to feel labeled. I don't want to have to pick a gender or a pronoun. I tried to get called an it when I was 8 years old and nobody would do it because it wasn't popular back then. And I don't, am I pansexual? Am I bisexual? What's today? And those labels can feel very constricting. And yet I recognize over and over again that we have language for the most part to communicate with other humans. And we, especially here in America, where I was born, operate in a society that, especially with social media, especially in all these different spaces, almost requires us to brand ourselves, even if we are not, individual entrepreneurs. Like there is kind of this quality of like, but make it easy for me. Let me use human heuristics. Like, who are you? What are you? And so I have been noodling on kind of the tension between the like, I want to have my freedom. I just want to be an artist. I'm all of these things. But when I show up and I'm like, hello, well, I'm a podcaster and a writer and a filmmaker and a photographer, and I also am a really good actor, and I also love to paint circles, and I also draw, and I also do collage, and also I'm a sex worker. Well, not just on OnlyFans. In fact, I am on my mission to make a super brothel. Oh, that's an education for a brothel space. Like when I lead with those labels, it explodes people. And if I
Yeah.
lead with one, it really shapes how they interact with me because someone who's speaking to me as an artist typically speaks to me very differently than if they think I am a sex worker, much less a full service
Yeah.
sex worker first. And so I totally hear you on the labels, and I've been inviting myself to welcome all of it and to let it all just kind of like alchemically flow in that given moment and trust that as I change, as I accept my own changes in a moment to moment, day to day way, I can invite others to be on that wavelength with me. And I'm a language nerd. I love words, and I feel like what you said earlier, like the vibrations. It reminds me exactly of your shameometer answer of like going back and forth between the 10 and the 0 and the 10 and the 0. And it really is a lot of words. And what I know over and over again is when I'm dropped in energetically and present with another person, those labels matter less and less and less because we can feel each other and just connect.
I mean, that is what sex is. It's creation. Like we
Yeah.
can, when we're in the process of it, we are creating, and it's you can fall full creations, masculine, feminine, and everything in between and outside of it. If we limit it, then all of a sudden we start playing roles within sex, and we start playing roles within relationships and roles within lives. And the problem with playing those roles and we get stuck in those roles, and then we expect our partners to be in those roles, and then they can't fulfill those roles because they're fucking people.
Yeah.
And so it all comes down to like learning how to play with it in sex and play and like get out of all these sorts of different roles that we
Yeah.
have inside of our head, just like let loose, experience it all, experience like the most crazy things, and start to recognize that everything is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like,
And to play, just like you said, I've started describing sex as our original creativity, and inviting people to share their original creativity in fullness. And I would love to hear, I know we're only partway through your update, but like as you started going through these changes, what did your sex life feel like? Like we got the clear picture of like I want to be inside a woman, but what about solo sex, and were you still seeing men, and like what was the like shift in that process like?
this woman took me and loved on me so much, just sucked me dry. And she was fucking amazing. She was 4 years older than me. So she had the maturity of a just beautiful, strong woman, but petite. And man, she was like the apple of my eye. I looked at her. She was like my little porn star. She was like the girl. She reminded me of a Pam Anderson mixed with like a Jenna Jameson, just all of it like bundled up into this. Whew. And we had this sexual chemistry that just blew my mind away. When we first met, though, I was like, she's my neighbor, so I can see her house right down the street, and we have a very volatile sort of relationship. She throws attacks at me occasionally because she hates gays. But when she met me, I was in a speedo at the pool, and I was actually living in this. I was right where I am. Actually, I was opening up an OnlyFans. I was living I was like very proud of this ability to kind of bounce back and forth between my masculine and my feminine. I was so fluid that I was starting to lose those labels and I was starting to feel more free. And I could feel it in my whole body. And as I said, my hips and everything were open. My posture felt good. I was faster in my run, like all this stuff. I felt so alive too. And then I met her, and it was like I gave all of that to her. I gave all of it and just kind of like threw myself into it because I almost felt like, and through my life, women have played this role in my life multiple times as being my healer.
Mm.
They come into my life and I'm like, I'm not gay anymore. Whoop-de-doo. I'm going to be able to go back and be a Mark Turnipseed now. No more Ryan Regency. I can throw that man away. I can throw the like shameful gay boy away. And now I can step back into this masculine man who was the rancher out in Montana, who was, friends with the big beer drinking belly boys and the, shotguns. Like I can be that guy. I can be golfing with my bros. I can be, at the gym. At the gym. It's such a bummer. Like, wearing this, wearing this at my gym. Like you can't see my little shorts,
Yeah.
but the same guys who used to hang out with me don't hang out with me anymore, right? And so
Oh.
when I started dating her, she would be like, "I want you to wear bigger shorts because those are gay looking," and I'd be like, "All right, that's fine. Like I'll be more masculine for you." And I started to experience the same fucking shit
Mm.
throughout my life. Like little itty bitty things were triggering me and causing shame. Again, I was starting to hate aspects of myself that I had loved, that had written my first book, My Suicide Race,
Mm. Yeah.
And then I started rewriting my whole book. I was going to rewrite the whole thing. I was going to rewrite the whole thing because I was now a straight Christian, and I had almost a wife and everything.
Oh.
And no, I didn't have an attraction for another man, like hardly whatsoever. I didn't have an attraction for another person really, except for like a month in. What kind of ruined the relationship for us was some guy started jacking off to me in the sauna, which, believe it or not, happens quite frequently. And this man was like, yes. And there's been times in my life where I shun them, where I shame them, but I recognize that they're actually a reflection and they're like part of me and they're here and I'm here to like give them something so beautiful. So that's one reason why I've chosen just to step into my purpose almost,
Mm.
And this man, I saw him doing it and it kind of turned me on because I'm an exhibitionist.
Mm.
And so I went home and we had had sex all morning, and she goes, I go, I'm horny again. She was like, you're just getting back from the gym. How are you horny again? I was like, well, weightlifting makes me horny, but also this guy started jacking off to me and it made me feel sexy. And all of a sudden it was like, she thought I was cheating on her and everything like that. So
Oh.
it became a very toxic relationship very rather quickly. Then once she got toxic with it, it became rather abusive. So there was a lot of moments. She's banned now on like TikTok for abuse towards me, and just she got really volatile. Through that time, I came to peace with the fact that that is part of me too. And so I started noticing all these different little parts and all these like kind of characters that I can play, all these different faces in my closet, all these, and that is what I love. I fucking love embodying them all. I love it. I
Mm.
love like cherishing and loving every part of me. And the reason is because if I can walk around in life and do that with other people, then I like life better. So if I can walk into my gym and just like, instead of like open my eyes, just be like, oh, okay, now look at people for what they are. They're these like brilliant processes of life, and they're all
Mm.
streaming around little buzzing vibrations, right? They're all just like going through this. They're like stars. And just nobody's like right here, right now. We're all just like this whole lifeline. And all of a sudden, everything becomes such a miracle and so beautiful, right? And then if that's the case, and then you can walk into that gym and you can be less afraid. I started living open in my life. I was just like, you know what? Screw that like closed compartment. I'm just going to start living open where I see everybody as beautiful. And as the world started to open up to me, I started to go, wait a second, why am I not that way to my own self?
Mm.
Think about what I could do for my own self if I could be that kind, if I could like see all parts of me also with non-judgmental eyes. So is there a way that I can also see parts of me like I see other people? Like when somebody hurts me, it's not necessarily them. It's them at this particular moment in time with the weird chemicals going on inside of their head that's causing them to hurt me, or it's their trauma.
Yeah.
It's not who they are, you know? But what about all the parts of me? Like, why am I not treating the, like, once I can recognize that, I got freedom from drugs and alcohol, a miracle in my life.
Yeah.
So why can't I step into like my true essence then? It's because I couldn't actually turn that inwards. And so then I spent the past like 2 years really just diving inwards, going as far inwards as I could. And ultimately that's where I found my salvation, my turnaround, my resolution and my peace.
Wow. I mean, it's the fullness of the unfolding is so big. So, is there more to say about your tantra experience? Like, it sounds like you were part of a community. Was it yoga classes? Did you do additional study? Like, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, so the yoga, I left the yoga. I started to feel like it's a really culty place. I also started to recognize that a lot of that stuff that they were trying to impress upon me was merely a gateway for me actually to develop a personal relationship with the energies that are out there. And I had access that gateway. So then it was just about me going to that gateway and exploring it myself. And so my practices started to evolve into more of a dance and a flow and a self expression. And this is kind of what I'm doing more on my OnlyFans now is showing that that's where the nature of the beast is, the nature of the workout, the nature of the power, the nature of your strength, is really inside of our sexuality. It's really inside of, connecting with that inner self, that's really, really deep within. At some point I go, I don't think I'll ever go back to a yoga class. I was like, I can't. And I did. I tried to go back to a yoga class and I was like, this is just, it's kind of weird. It was lost on me. It
Mhm.
was lost on me. And I started to wander again. I started to be like, where's my people? And I think that's largely why I ended up back in the church. And part of like ending up back in the church too was also like safety and comfort because I was like hiding away. Like it was like I could finally get the love and appreciation of my father. I
Mm.
could finally get love and appreciation of my whole family. They welcomed me back. I mean, I've been kind of disbanded from my family my whole life, and so over the past 2 years, they kind of welcomed me back. And so what you're seeing right now, I'm actually just kind of coming out of that welcoming back too. I'm kind of getting the door closed again, in
Really?
essence. And yeah, so it's a really interesting little process that I'm going through. But this complete abandonment, okay, that I'm kind of getting at with yoga, right? Just recognizing and trying to find a place where I was like, I don't need the class to define me anymore. I'm now like I'm a yogi. Like I felt it within, I
Mhm.
felt who I was. And, so developing, I think, your own personal will always lead to Tantra. Okay. Because there's no place for you to go when you're alone doing yoga besides deeper within. If you don't, you won't continue doing yoga. You're gonna stop because you're gonna be thinking about, is this pose right and all this. Now, if you really go headstrong into yoga, you're going to lose yoga. You will never have it again. You actually fall into what they call tantra. And tantra is what they call the ultimate understanding. It's like this place where you take yoga, which is about centering the being, and then tantra, which is about giving your being. And
Mm.
so all of a sudden, you don't have that search anymore, the yogic search of like finding that self. You just have this unfolding and falling of the self into the purpose or the destiny, based on, you know whoever you are. And it's a yes place. It's like once you get there, there's like it feels like there's no way to not be exactly who you show up, exactly who you are all the time in your absolute fullness, in this full embodied self. And then when you're not, you recognize that your vibrations are misaligned. And so what tantra kind of views us all as is what Tantra views life as, right, is much like an Einsteinian. I mean, we can pull it all the way into physics, and it's really quite profound. But we see this like field. We see this field of vibrations, right? And that's how time like loops around this like space-time continuum. It's like this. It's like a blanket. Interestingly, Tantra sees life like a blanket too, and we're all threads that go throughout this entire blanket. And so this huge blanket, which is, covering, and however this whole thing is, we're part of that little thread work. And when you stop vibrating in your right way, you start to feel it once you, I think, evolve into this tantric space. And when you're there, you recognize, like when I'm making love, if I'm in it for the other person, and I started to recognize this with my ex-girlfriend, when I would go straight into just being all there for her and watching her as she experienced this levity in life, right? This ecstasy, and being there for her, and watching her go through that, I was able to start riding this like new wave of being there for someone else that I had never really experienced before. And that was what I started to recognize was the essence of really, really, absolutely beautifully pleasurable sex that didn't end. And so there's a way to just ride this pleasure wave, but it's all about learning how to give rather than to take. It's all learning about how to just be present, being a giver, being like, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And as that started to happen, I just started to go, I want to do this in every area of my life. It became my way of life. And then I love the other sexual components to tantra that it also leads into, because that whole philosophy would ultimately lead to me having a better understanding of where energy is going through my body
Mm.
and what purpose it's serving. Okay, so like if I'm jacking off or if I'm having sex and I feel the energy about to come, right, what purpose is this serving right here? Where is it? How is it building up? You start to become more and more present with it, and you can kind of just move it around. You can kind of like, as it starts to build up, you recognize, oh, wait, I don't have to release right now. I can just ride this wave. And so sex became tremendously more rewarding and enjoyable from this. But I think the philosophy had to come first. Like I had to come to that understanding. And I felt like before this, I was not as good of a lover.
Mm.
So, part of me wants to share this with men because I think a lot of men have a lot of frustration around not being that very good of lovers. I have sex with a lot of men, and a lot of men can't last very long.
Mm.
They have this idea of like, this is a start, this is a go, this is that's the way the human mind is set. Like, we meet up, we hook up, we come. Me and my boyfriend, we make love without even coming together, and we'll go for hours on end and have multiple orgasms and not even come, right? And then we'll come like 3 days later together in this beautiful, much more explosive delight than you could ever imagine if you're always just chasing the next little, you know? And
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, I'm kind of I'm seeing this whole thing come together, that through the fitness, through the connection with the breath work, with the loosening of guys' hips, going like, just it was like I could make it in about like probably like a 12-week program that people can like loosen up their bodies, become more open, become more vulnerable, become more receptive and loving to the world, right? Become more connected with this inner animalistic drive that's within them, and become more ultimately as satisfactory with their presence in life. And that will reduce men's huge amount of toxicity that's on this planet right now if they're just assured about their perfect being. They don't have to be anymore. You don't have to rule anymore. You don't have to control a whole bunch of people. You don't have to, your way doesn't have to go. It doesn't have to be your way or the highway. Like, just take a fucking chill pill, dude.
Wow. Okay. There's so much there that I am so excited to delve into. I have read enough, learned enough, experienced enough my own spirituality and self teachings to kind of track what you're saying. And I'm a very concrete, logical thinker, and I imagine that many people who maybe aren't as familiar with Tantra or esoteric concepts in general might be curious about. And I also want to always invite, whenever I hear don'ts in my brain, I play a little puzzle game to say, well, since a human actually can't aim for a don't, I always try to reframe it into a do. So when someone doesn't have to control, they are invited to sit back, relax, and be present, or whatever they want to choose for themselves. What I do want to hear is first to go back to the piece where you were first, I think, speaking about making love to a woman, although I don't know that it matters if you're making love to a woman or man. You can tell me. For me, it doesn't matter. Everyone's experience is different. I heard you speak about the ability to stay present and it be all for your partner. Now, I want to draw a really clear and maybe like nitpicky, precise linguistic contrast between the energetic experience of I certainly can connect to what you're saying with my own projection and experience because I know moments where I'm like, I feel present, I am experiencing pleasure, and I'm in service. And I've also had terrible experiences with partners that are like, all for you, babe. Let me just take care of you. You. It's about you. I'm here for you. And really, it is their ego speaking to me, and I can tell through the gestures, through the level of attention, through how my body is or isn't responding. So if someone is maybe brand new to these concepts, let's just start there. What do you, in the most concrete way, notice in your body? I heard you talk about energy moving around. I heard you talk about a presence, and I know it's a tricky thing to put into words, but can you kind of draw that distinction or delineation?
For me, from out where I personally came from. So, what sex used to be for me was a tool for me to feel more like a man. So, I would be fucking a girl and I would be into it and I would be feeling all sorts of things. I would become kind of a fragmented person. There'd be lots of different thoughts going on inside of my head. By default is about me. Like, in my experience, sex has, because of my child trauma and everything, sex has been about me. Now, when I started to experience this other aspect of it, I started to experience a wholeness of what sex truly could be. And it's not about ever experiencing one thing at the time, being a servant or a pleaser. Instead, it's about melding them all together at one time. In the fact that neither one is really being a bottom or a top, right? Neither one's being a man or a woman. We're just kind of like smashed together and playing our role. Therefore, this transcends natural English and our language, I do believe, because you're both consuming and being consumed at the same time. And when you're in that place, you're both exploding and retracting. You're both, eccentric and concentric movements. It's just, it's this full embodiment and this wholeness. So being wholly completely there for your partner, I think, is a better term than being of service for your partner. Because I believe a lot of times in my mind in particular, I become a fragmented person and I become less whole for whoever I'm there with. And it'll happen during conversations and everything. I'll get triggered by some sort of thought, and then all of a sudden I'll kind of lose focus, right? I'll lose my presence, I'll lose my being. And if I can come back and recognize that, okay, it's okay, just connect with your breath, be here and be present, then I develop this wholeness. And when I'm in that state, I've noticed that I can make better sales, I can make better friends, I can, I can help people better, And so if I can just chase after that in everything, it's that wholeness, just always bringing that wholeness, then I think that's ultimately what I was more so saying along those lines.
Yeah, I love that. And then I want to also circle back to the part where you were talking about having sex for hours with your boyfriend. And I want to make a distinction because I heard you say we orgasm but don't come. And you mean like ejaculation come, right? Because I think for those of us who have pussies, I know that I use those terms interchangeably, orgasm and come. And because they're, like, did you come? Did you come? Did you come? So when you're having orgasms, you're saying ejaculation free pleasure peaks. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's what I
Okay.
would define that as.
And I know that I've spoken to a number of people who don't necessarily even know what sex for hours might look like. So, Could you give us concretely, like, physical examples of, like, what are you doing? Because I am a person that certainly can get lost in bodies rolling around, but I always journal about my experiences later, and there certainly are moments where I'm like, "And I don't know which happened next and what order it went in," but I really, really love the details of, like, what are your physical bodies doing in space when you are creating these pleasure moments together for hours?
Yeah. And I hope that other people can experience this in their life. I remember hearing rumors about it when I was younger and being like,
Yeah,
I wonder if I can ever get there. And I was like, there's absolutely no way.
yeah.
So interesting. So I've been a male massage therapist for the past like 4 years, basically on and off, and my boyfriend actually, he came as one of my clients. And he came, I was over my girlfriend and I'd been over her for about a year. And I was opening back up to the tantric explorations. And I was starting to incorporate into my own sex life a new form of, maybe not even sex life. It was more like my own spiritual life, a new practice. And it's called edging.
Yes.
And in edging, I was just the way that I did it. I was just like, I'm not going to do this formally or anything. I'm just going to, whenever I'm showering, doing my teeth, whatever I'm doing, I'm just going to be jacking off. At first, I was wanting to train myself. And like I said, I kind of jump in. And so I was
Mhm.
just like, I'm just going to jack off all the time. I'm just going to edge all the time. And it was really cool. When I first started doing it, I was like, I would just, feeling that come up and recognizing, oh wait, these are just feelings and stuff. It was a rather quick, and knowing that when I was doing it, that I wasn't going to end, being like, no, you're just not going to end. This is just, you're just enjoying this feeling. It's like, if this feels good, you're just walking around doing this type thing. So I had just been starting to experiment with this. And then he comes over to my house. He comes over to my house and he's just so hot. Like, oh my God, takes off his clothes and gets on my bed and I'm just like drooling.
Yes.
I'm just like, I cannot wait to start rubbing on him. I'm a little bit nervous, palms are sweaty, and I rub all over him, and then as he flips over, gorgeous, gorgeous cock, and I can't help myself. Like usually, I save about 30 minutes for when somebody's on their back, and I do a whole show. Like I get up on top of them, and I strip all over them, and I rub my ass all over them, and it's a beautiful, wonderful experience. It ends in a gorgeous explosion usually, but with him I just, that thing was just up there. I just started sucking him off immediately. And he was like, I edge and I won't ever come. I was like, oh. So I guess he had, he had been doing this his whole life. And he was like, no, I like to have sex for like hours. And that's how I end up coming. And I was like, oh, that's so cool that you do that because I'm like just getting on this path. I felt like it was kind of perfect time, but he didn't come back to me as a client for like another month. And then I saw him again. And, it was a really cool experience being able to suck a guy off, him not come and still enjoy the whole process and me enjoy the whole process. And I was just like, at one point, I couldn't stop thinking about him. And so I think this is also something that this tantra stuff does, and because it's this buildup. We live life in this. It's like a tease. It's like you're always just like you're so eager. I feel so eager about life, right? It's like kind of giddy. So yeah, sex actually became kind of about that too, riding that kind of giddiness, and then at some point, if you're doing like long spells, at some point, then it's just like, oh, let's just like hang out and just gently. You start to ride like this thing that kind of undulates up and down, right? And then you find yourself cuddling for a while, doing, some gentle like oral and stuff, and then you'll find yourself back in just craziness. You'll go through a couple different like orgasms together, and then you'll, gently come out of it, maybe go have some food, come back, and then you might even fall asleep and it lasts for another week. You might not see each other for 2 weeks. And this like buildup is the same thing that was happening during those massages. Like I can't stop thinking about him. And it's a way of kind of bonding and becoming so intimate together. It's a really beautiful thing that we do that evolved like from from the massage, and ultimately is part of what I believe tantra and the tantric experience is being in this, you're like kind of teasing orgasm. Your whole life is like that,
Yeah.
and sex and edging and all of that is just, it's just a mirage. It's kind of like a distraction. It's kind of like a tool for you to learn how to be a better lover, to actually, like, take your lover, your partner, or your OnlyFans or whatever you do sexually, do it so that you can be actually a better service for the world type thing.
Mm. I love edging so, so much. Anyone who is on my OnlyFans knows that I do September's Edge, where I spend, now this will be my 3rd year in a row doing, I edge all of September for like 10 to 20 minutes a day. I try to touch myself differently, and I think of it as my own personal back to school. And so I try to not come the entire month. Now, if I am with a lover and like absolutely can't help myself, it's a really, really fun game to try to not come. And, my personal origin story was I was very initially orgasm shy with partners, and so I heard you talk earlier about men partners who like maybe come too fast. And I wonder if in the casual dating world, you also have experience with people that are orgasm shy and can't come at all. Because my experience is that edging helps both parties, right? Whether someone is like worried they're going to come too fast or worried they're not going to come fast enough. And I have a lot of my lovers kind of toggle between those two. And so I'm always like, I'm chasing your pleasure, not your orgasm. Thank you, Suzanne, from a previous episode. But I wonder if you have experience with that too.
That's exactly what I experience. Yeah. Yeah, completely. Because here's the thing is it helps you no matter what your feelings are. So like as I move along, I can actually pull that feeling whenever I want. Like
Mm.
I went and did a porn shoot with Mark Henderson. He's like one of the main, porn photographers for nude males. He's at a like he locks it's a weird experience. He locks you in his house for like 3 days and you can't leave. He orders all
Oh.
your food and you stay in a little bedroom. Yeah.
Wait, that's like in a kink dynamic or like
No, it's just the way that he does his photo shoots. He wants to control everything. And
I
so
mean, that
like you
sounds
come to
pretty
his
kinky to
house and
me.
his whole house is just, it's like a big porn photo. Yeah, it's totally his kink that he makes tons of money off of. He sells like $900 book albums, of these just gorgeous men.
Ooh,
And
okay.
yeah, so I got the pleasure of and work with him. And when he was there, he goes, "You're the only person I've ever met who was able to stay hard for the full 8 hours." I was
Oh,
like, "Well,
wow.
I didn't full 8 hours. I went in and out. Like I was able to take some breaks." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Yeah, but you didn't take any of the drugs that they take or anything like that." And it's because it's all about really rising to the occasion and learning how that I can take feelings. Like, I mean, this all started back in triathlon. And that's so like in triathlon, you start to experience these dark, horrible feelings. I can't go on. I gotta give up. I gotta give up. It screams so loud inside of your head, right? It screams just as loud as I'm about to come, This feeling is so heavy and so intense. And just learning to be with those feelings, I think inside of yoga and inside of tantra, inside of any place, you can't rush the thing. You just got to start feeling first. Start feeling and learn how when you feel, learn how to relax. Like that's the thing in sex when people can't come. Like I had this girlfriend throughout this time. She was a really strong Christian girl, and she didn't have a problem coming, but I could tell that she had a problem feeling. She had a problem, like, fully experiencing, like, anatomically, she came a lot, but I could tell she wasn't actually orgasm. She wasn't in this, like, oh, this full-blown experience, And ultimately, I think that a lot of people, when I walk around in life, I feel like they're not in that full experience. Like they feel like they're kind of sleeping in life. And there's so many more things that they feel, right? And you can feel it and you can feel it and you can just let it go and you don't have to become it. Like kink is so much fun because like you stretch yourself, you press yourself, you challenge yourself in all these different ways, and in those moments, you want to give up and you think your shame level goes up to 10, and then you suck it down. And you just it. You rest in that shame. You hang there while somebody's beating on you, and you just like release, like being able to fall, like wherever it takes you. It started real light with me, and then it started to just go places, and it's tremendous.
I want to hear more details about kinks. I heard a lot of general talk about how like a person might experience kink. I would love to hear specifics of like what you've discovered you are into to the depths that you're comfy sharing and what else you might want to explore.
I was always open to a lot of things sexually, and I guess I was always willing to try. I would always say like I'm willing to try anything type thing, but would I really, you know? And I always experienced this like kink shaming, and so like I went to like a kink party. I don't know if I could accept everybody for who they were priorly. And so, as I began to get open to this, I noticed multiple different challenges and different walls that we're going to have to break down. you know and so I think for a lot of people there's a lot about entering into the kink world. And so I read this book. It was called Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott, which we talked about. In this book, it showed me that kink was not necessarily something to be ashamed of. Rather, it's something just like every other part of yourself. Like it's something that rests within yourself, and that if you shame it, if you don't love on it, if you don't, cherish it and use it and put it in its place and embody it, then it's ultimately going to be just like that lie within you. At some point, it's going to hurt your endurance. At some point, it's going to hurt your performance. At some point, if it's not already, impeding on your whole life's satisfaction and
Yeah.
definitely your impact on other people, and how this whole concept of manifestation and being open to blessings and things like that, because without it, for me, I was destroying myself. And what a lot of these listeners might not know is I come from a past of very heavy suicidal thoughts. And so if I'm not in like a complete embodied moment, and I've got these like shameful things, they go right to suicide for me. And so, I've always been like, I am desperate to get out however I can from this constant melodrome of suicidal thoughts. And this seemed like a way out for me. So when I read this book, and it would say like, okay, you have this shameful kink within you. For me, they would rise up while I was doing these yoga meditations and stuff that were getting increasingly more profound and beautiful and vibrant and like experiential. And I'm going through, and I start to experience being like, oh wait, there's this thing right here, and I've got to discover it, and I've got to unlock, like, where does it come from? Where does this like need to be babied come from? Like, why do I have a man in my life who I'm kind of like using for his finances, and it's ultimately sucking some of the life out of me, and
Mm.
how did I find myself in this dependent place when I didn't see myself as a dependent? Like I had subconsciously put myself under the restricted bounds of another person financially, and I wanted financial independence. Why unconsciously had I put myself there? And there was some inner baby that had not been taken care of, right? And there was some like child that needed to be addressed and communicated with. And through this existential kink, I started to look at all the different areas. That's just one. There's hundreds of thousands of them, as I started to explore it. And they've come up, and then I would go, okay, what do I need to do then to face this kink? Right? What do I need to do? And I didn't really know what to do. And so what happened to me when I started doing triathlon and when I started getting sober is I reached out to people who did know. So guys, like if you're going through something like this and you're on your path and your destiny, you don't have to do it alone. There comes a point where like you do have to reach out. There's a lot of like greatness that goes on alone, but then at some point you reach that spot, you got to reach out and connect, because then when you do, you recognize you're not alone, and then power gets built in it, and you don't feel that shame, right? It's a wonderful experience. So I found this kink community down here in South Florida, and they run through the Fetish Factory, and they do like tons of events. And it just so happened the day that I was like opening my mind to all of this, they were having a like a noon, like it was like 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. party at a strip club. Usually their parties are super late,
I was gonna say, I
which my
love that it's early. I hate
yeah,
the late night parties. I'm like, give me an afternoon.
I was so excited. I'm usually asleep at 8:30,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Man, this is gonna be amazing." And so I was scared shitless to go to this thing, but I did, and it was so beautiful. I saw my nightmares all in front of my eyes, and the people that I met inside of this party, they actually ended up being some of just like the nicest, most loving, professional people. I was talking to doctors and lawyers and all sorts of people, and not only that, like I felt like it was the least judgmental. I felt like I was like, oh my God, this is like these are the best people on the planet. All the people like I shunned the like I kink shamed all these people like wearing freaking gas masks, like weird. There's such like I couldn't I felt like there was aliens around. I mean, I felt like I was on a weird acid trip. There was crosses and I put myself up on the crosses and let them whip me and stuff. And I did everything. I just fell into it. And when I would be up there. So there's I guess there's two ways that these little like kink demons kind of come up. One way is through like the meditation where you go like, oh, I there was part of me that needed to be babied that was never babied, right? And that came up through the meditation. So now how do I do that? Well, maybe I can find a partner who wants to treat me like a baby, or maybe I
Mhm.
can find a partner that wants to like, do a little bit of role play, daddy role play, or whatever you want to like construct there. And then there's another way. You subject yourself to it, and while you're there, getting whipped in front of people, stretching your boundaries, all sorts of things come up. And you have to, in those places, either run or stay and deal with them. And
Mhm.
I'm a stay and deal with person these days. Like I used to
Mhm.
always run from things, and that led me into heroin addiction. So now I stay with the feeling. I stay with it until I find whatever it is that's in it. And, and generally, I come out knowing so much more about myself. That's something that's been really beautiful about kink. And I will say that there hasn't been a single thing that I've turned off to. With those thoughts of like baby, I started to dive into it, and I remember times when I was a little baby where I would be in my dirty diaper. My mom said something interesting last night. We sat down, she was like, "But for you everything was different. You were always such a sensitive person." And I told her, well, yeah, that's because I'm an artist and a poet, mom. I'm supposed to experience life at its most horrible, horrific levels and its most brilliant all at the same time. And so as I was beginning to experience this sensation, I was in this meditation and I was just like, I've got to shit myself. And oh, it was such a weird feeling. I was so nervous to like fall into this. I had already said yes to everything that I had done. I was like, and I knew what I was breaking through existential kink wise. I knew that like I was coming through this like whole new, and I had no idea what I was about to break through, but I did. I released, and it took a lot. It was like a really hard thing to go to the bathroom in your pants. It took me like 30 minutes because I had to decondition everything that I had been trained from a very traumatic experience. A very traumatic experience told me that I was dirty, that I was like, that I was not wanted, that I was, rejected because of this filth that rose up out of me, and I became ashamed of it. And letting go of all of that is like breaking a egg that's just been crystallized for a century, right? And the willingness and the demons that I had to face to just like finally release that. And then I released it, and it was really quite pleasurable. I had an erotic experience out of it, to say the least. And yeah, it was really cool. And it was really fascinating to me. And I've really started to appreciate life more like that rather
Mhm.
than like, oh, this is me. Like, I like shit now. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, I just experienced something really rather amazing that not too many people are ever going to be able to experience. And like, I'm going to be
Or
able,
they just don't talk about it.
yeah, or just don't talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this was such an amazing amazing thing for me to do, and it was so very scary. But as it pertains to a lot of them, I do them, and then they might hold a luster for a little bit of time, and then they just kind of dissipate. And that was kind of one that dissipated. I got kind of excited about it. I was like, wow, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
people are actually into this, and you can do it safely. And and it's such a like an intimate, like rather cool experience,
Mhm.
when like, I dove in, I played around a little bit, and it's just, I don't think it's really necessarily for me like everyday type thing. But yeah, diving into it was really profoundly exhilarating every time that I, did it. And then it just kind of fizzled away. And I think that that's the way that just a lot of things kind of work for me.
Absolutely. And I think that's totally normal, and thank you for sharing. I love so much when we humans can share vulnerably and openly, because I know that I myself, when I started like admitting to close friends, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a poop my pants story. So many of them also do, and my first one wasn't in a kink context, and then when I tell people like, oh yeah, I've tried a golden shower, and they're like, you, okay, well, I've let someone pee on me, and like, I drank it once. And then they were like, okay, me too, or like they admit curiosity of these things that when I let go of my own self-judgment, which Existential Kink was a book that really helped me with that. And it's so interesting. I want to just reflect for a second on my experience reading that book, because it was about 4 years ago. It was June 2021, and it was such a big cracking open moment for me. And I was in my 4th year of my identity as a kinky person. So I thought I was going to open up this book and get like, spiritual BDSM or this or that. And there's very little of that in that book. What I remember distinctly is the part where Carolyn Elliott is talking about going to a 12-step program and hearing these shares and being like, if there's a God, God must be one kinky motherfucker. Because this human experience is so, rich across the entire spectrum of experience. And so
Yeah.
that book, I think, is responsible for helping me. I think of the word re-storify, like the last little bits of the negative stories I was telling toward myself about the way I actually was. Because now when I can retell any story to be like, well, some unconscious part of me must be getting off on this. Like, ooh, I guess I can really enjoy, whatever human tangle I've created for myself. Oh, I guess I can really enjoy, having another partner that doesn't value me. That was before this era that I'm currently
Yeah.
in. Ooh, I guess I can really enjoy accidentally exploding people in my search to have their words line up with my experience. And so, so it's helped me become very aware of my own patterns, and then also helped me accept the fact that I always wanted to explore being a full service sex worker. Like, I always wanted to go all the way because I really love deep spaces of intimacy with people where they will share with me stories about pooping their pants or desires that they haven't necessarily felt safe or comfortable to share with anyone else. And so I think that's so incredibly beautiful. And to go back to what you're saying about, noticing, trying some things and then setting them down, the more that I think about sex as our original creativity, the more I think about like my child parts. I picked up every art and craft that was available to me, whether I was at camp or at school or wherever I could get the tools, like chalk on the playground, like every little thing, just to try it, just to explore, just to learn a little bit more about myself and what I might create. And since I started thinking about sex as adult play, and hopefully we are bringing our consciousness to it, and hopefully if we are exploring a lot of kinks, it sound you are a person who has learned many of the depths of yourself. I know some people who like dive right into kink and they don't know themselves and they hurt themselves, and I also think that's just another path in this world, right?
Not all about pleasure. Kink is a very, it's not just about being kinky. Like
Exactly.
otherwise, you get lost in the drugs and it gets can be pretty weird, and people take advantage of you. You know.
Absolutely. It can be another high, it can be another drug, it can be another space for, dangerous things. And everyone in various kink spaces that I've been in have arrived with their own different level of personal development and consciousness. And the more that I know myself, the more I'm able to recognize like who is on kind of the same wavelength of play. And so for
Yeah.
me, seeing the different tools, the different toys, the different things as a way to like play and explore, and play is exploring contingencies. So, like, finding these different ways to explore different contingencies. I don't need to get flogged every single day for the rest of my life, but like you were saying, it's like something that, is on my menu, and in the right contexts with the right play partner, or in the right circumstances or settings, it might be part of a very beautiful smorgasbord. So thank you for bringing all of the nuance to that experience. I fucking love hearing that.
Well, it would be a lot of fun because I just got a brand new flogger today.
Oh, oh, what divine timing. Wow, I just pulled that one out of my brain. Okay. I want to hear more about primalness and maybe how that relates to coaching. Like, wrap us up here by telling us, like, what is this next chapter for you? What are you looking forward to? What else have you explored and learned?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this play out in other men's lives because I've experienced a transformation in my own,
Mm,
and this blessing I just really want to share with other people. It's become the purpose of my life because look, I went through a lot of like religious trauma. I think there's tons of people out there with religious trauma. I think that there's even more like that we're replicating religious trauma at a just atrocious rate. We have outrageous celebrities now claiming that they're Christians, and we have the church like ruling politics, and we have just all this stuff that's it's like against progress, and I think that my most valuable way of helping to promote progress is helping men to resolve their issues like I did, because I was once an abusive husband. I was once an alcoholic. I was also a homeless heroin addict. I've been suicidal. I've been in the closet. I've been in all those places that end up creating Jeffrey Dahmers.
mm,
I've been in all those places that end up creating tyrants who are rulers and, in power. I've been in all those places that create, business executives that end up being outrageously selfish. They could end up saving the entire planet. You know, I've been in those places. And I know that to evolve out of those places and to become a healthier, happier human race, we've got to tear down the sexual walls. And they're all, I believe, built upon this Christian and this paternal and this like weird understanding of masculine and feminine, right? So it's all about feeling deeper, being more self-aware. I think that there's just so many answers that lie in this type of work that I went through, and so spending the last few months of looking at my whole life, like where it built up to, from writing the My Suicide Race book to developing a skincare company that's rooted in oil and inflammation, holistic wellness, connection back to nature, and going into life coaching and wellness coaching. It just seemed like all of this was coming together for this moment, right? For me launching this thing that was helping men to break free, because there's so many men out there, including myself, on a daily basis that get stuck. They get stuck in the repeating like theater of this is how I'm supposed to be. This is who I'm supposed to be. And then inside the head, I can't be this. I can't be this. There's these little boys just wanting to be outside. There's these little boys just wanting to be nurtured. They're all man babies anyway. Everybody acts like fucking children anyway. So might as well have fun with it. Might as well like let loose and start smiling with your child inside. Let it run out. Be the naughty, dirty little boys that you were. Don't hold this stuff back. Like, and plus, here's the biggest thing is like I think everybody has like such an individual like beautiful purpose. They have a beautiful like partner who is out there for them. There's somebody who loves everybody, like everything. And as you start to work in sex, you start to see that. And so like I used to have so much shame about who I was. I used to think that my cock was small.
mm,
It's about 7 inches, but I would still think that it's small. Because I saw people with bigger ones. And so no matter how big or how small you are, recognize like I met a girl my cock was perfect for,
mm,
right? And it took 30 years, maybe, I don't know. But this woman who I was just so connected with, she made me feel like such a man inside. And I know that like through that experience, I gained this sense of confidence that every single person at some point will be enough. And the reason why I brought that one up is like, I remember when I was about 16, I had a girlfriend say that my dick wasn't big enough, and it forever
Mm.
traumatized and until I started to come to this understanding, I couldn't recognize myself as being enough. And so helping people to recognize that they're enough, it's my ultimate goal on this planet, I believe. Everybody has their purpose, everybody has their partner out there, and once you recognize that there's hope and there's potential, and that it is, look, all you have to do once you see this goal, and I've seen it because I've written a book and I've developed a skincare company that's now launching into freaking Bloomingdale's, right? Like, it blows my mind. I was homeless 10 years ago. I was homeless and closeted and 230 pounds 10 years ago. And look, if I can think about this in my mind, and I can think about Mark wants to be an Ironman triathlete, put that in your head. Put that in your head. Put whatever you want to be inside of your head and walk into it. Walk into that person. You're going to have to go through lots of discomforts, and you're going to have to go through lots of like challenging places. And this is a place, like in your sex and sexuality, that's a place where you can start to discover how you can transcend in your actual everyday life.
Fuck yeah. I trust that everything's always working out for us, and I love that you are there if people need you. And lovers, if you want to connect with Mark, you can visit him at markaturnipseed.com. The link is in the description below. Mark, thank you so much for coming back and sharing your updates.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be here. I always love it.